Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, From Catch to Customer, Enhancing Seafood Processing, brought to you by Seafood Source and sponsored by CAI Software. We have just a few housekeeping notes to go over before we officially get started today. If you need any technical assistance, we first recommend refreshing your browser. If you continue to have technical questions or issues using the On24 platform, please use the Q&A box and we will respond as soon as we can. There will be no call-in number for today's session. To connect, you need to have access to either a computer, tablet, or cell phone audio. Everyone has automatically been muted today. If you happen to get disconnected at any time, you can log on again using the instructions provided in your webinar confirmation email. If you continue to have trouble, please email info@seafoodsource.com and we will respond as soon as we can. For your convenience, everything in the webinar console is fully customizable. So you can move things around, resize the windows, and even turn on captions for this event. At the bottom of your console, you will find a resources box where you can download the slides as well as any additional content for today's presentation. And you can ask a question at any time during the presentation by submitting them through the Q&A box. And we'll do our best to leave time at the end of the session to answer as many questions as time allows. And finally, this webinar will be recorded and you will receive a thank you email with the on-demand materials within 2 business days. And with all of that out of the way, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. We will be hearing from Judith Kirkness. Judith is a food industry titan with decades of experience in helping food processors meet and exceed their business goals. She's also a leader in understanding upcoming regulation and how to get and stay ahead of it. Check out her book, Traceability Technology for Food Manufacturers, How to Be Ready for Blockchain. And we will also be hearing from Cyra Humber. Cyra is a seafood industry expert who focuses on customer success. She understands how traceability affects seafood specifically and how focusing on customers will lend itself to staying ahead of changing regulations, feeding 2 birds with 1 seed. And at this time, I would like to welcome our speakers and hand the webinar over to Cyra. Welcome, Cyra.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kelsey. I appreciate the introduction. So first and foremost, we want to thank you all for being here today. We appreciate you taking the time to participate in our webinar this afternoon. We understand that you are all busy, but I hope within our time together, we can answer some of the prominent and impending questions that surround our industry today. So as previously mentioned, my name is Cyra Humber, and today I'm joining you from the East Coast of Canada in a beautiful city called Halifax. I'm fortunate enough to be joined today with Judith Kirkness, who is located just outside of the Toronto area. Now, while we both happen to be located within Canada, our colleagues here at CAI are scattered worldwide. Our predominant markets are within North America and Europe, most specifically Norway, and more recently into Asia. We are highly focused on seafood processes and becoming trusted advisors for helping businesses just like yours reach their full potential. So together, both Judith and I hope to be able to answer some of these questions for you. We hope you take this information and think in terms of how you can better optimize your seafood processes. So what is it exactly that we're going to be diving into today? How are we going to answer these questions for you? Well, our main question, and one that we're going to keep referring back to for the duration of this webinar, is why automate? What sorts of drivers are causing these changes, and how can we be one step ahead of them? Now, I remember hearing a quote once when I was really quite young that read, "The only constant is change." As a young kid, I really remember thinking to myself, what a silly little quote. And I moved on from it. But what I do find interesting is that silly little quote has stuck with me now for whatever reason or another. And not only that, it has become more and more evident in our world today. We can all see it, we can all feel it, and we are all currently experiencing it. Technology is advancing at rates faster than ever before, and quite frankly, so are these customer expectations and consumer needs. From a business standpoint, embracing this change is no longer just a strategy, when in reality, it is now a necessity. So how can we stay on top of this? Well, businesses must remain agile and adaptive, and those who are able to actually anticipate trends, innovate their practices, and stay attuned to the needs of their customers will not only survive these upcoming changes, but also flourish within the process. So how can we do this? Well, first we must understand exactly what these triggers are for this need for change. If we can understand them, we can adapt to them. FSMA 204, the Food Safety Modernization Act, introduces critical FDA regulations which are aimed at improving seafood safety products and will include things like electronic tracking of items, detailed traceability reports, and increased accountability and response to food safety incidents. What might this mean for you? Well, it likely means you're going to have a lot more auditors coming into your facility. That means time and resources are distracted or essentially wasted from generating revenue for your business. Perhaps your manager needs more insightful data in order to make more informed decisions. Maybe you're growing and Excel just won't cut it anymore. Maybe you have too many solutions that just feel disconnected. If you could solve your problems, maybe it's one of these things, maybe it's an accumulation of many. Why wouldn't you want to change these? And since we have discovered that the only constant is change, our goal today is to show you how you will survive this and thrive while you're preparing for the future.
Thanks, Cyra. So I'm going to talk a little bit about FSMA and what it really means to you. So as Cyra mentioned, FSMA is the Food Safety Modernization Act. It's the updated version, which has taken probably since about 2011 for them to create their final rules on traceability. They consulted with various industry groups and stakeholders over the course of time and adapted the rules since they first released their first guidance about 13 years ago. So there are a number of compliance requirements. They have actually, the act is in place, but you have until January of 2026 to actually become compliant. Now, let's say you're like me and you're not located in the US and you're wondering, well, this probably doesn't apply to me. Well, if you supply any products to the US, it actually does apply to you. You are required to meet FSMA practices, and the first person that you ship to in the US is required to ensure that their suppliers are following these same rules. Now, FSMA really doesn't differ a lot from the global dialogue on seafood traceability. It's just the FDA's been tasked primarily with ensuring that your products are quickly and easily traceable should there be a food safety issue and a recall needed. Whereas the global dialogue on seafood traceability guidelines were meant to ensure that there was more visibility across the entire supply chain so that each member in the supply chain was making it possible for the next member to carry forward traceability information to ensure that legal fishing practices, for instance, are adhered to. So they both, while having slightly different mandates, they ended up coming to incredibly close requirements on traceability and guidance documents. Very small differences, such as you need phone numbers for FSMA, which is not part of the requirements for the GDST. So when you're thinking about, well, does this really pertain to me? The food traceability list is a list of what the FDA considers to be the higher risk items. And don't feel you're being picked on. It's not simply seafood. It's a lot of the kinds of foods. So cheese, various different, like all fruits and vegetables are among this. Whereas, and they chose the foods that they felt had the highest risk based on historical recalls and, the effects of what has gone wrong in those foods that they have had on people. So even if you make things like a salad, a seafood salad, or maybe you make crab cakes and you include some, I don't know, celery or peppers in the crab cakes, those items as well are part of the food traceability list. So, well, all of these items are requiring this more enhanced electronic traceability, where you need to be able to provide within 24 hours to the FDA an electronically acceptable version of the recall information they're requesting. It's not just seafood products, and most of our customers are actually implementing the same rules across all the food items that they bring in, not separating and saying, well, we're only going to worry about the increased level of tracking on the food traceability list items, simply because it makes it harder for staff at receiving and manufacturing to have different rules of how they handle different incoming products. So the gist of it is that you've got to have the traceability, the full traceability cycle in a system where the information is captured. So that means all of your received items, whether they are live fish that are coming in there, live or fish that are coming in there where you're weighing it and they're not coming in with any kind of labels, obviously, to start the process, or whether you're receiving things like cased items where you will have labels coming in, you're either assigning or bringing forward your supplier's lot number. Then you've got recipes, you're maybe packaging, perhaps you're transforming or freezing products, and you're making new products. In that process, you're assigning new lot numbers, and you need to track for the one up, one down, which lot numbers or serial numbers of products you're shipping to which of your customers. Now, these requirements are actually also very similar to the requirements if any of you are actually certified or working on certification for a Global Food Safety Initiative certification, such as BRC, SQF, the Seafood Alliance certification. Any of those certifications are really asking for the same kind of information to be tracked. So you've got an opportunity, you have to track this information. In fact, you likely have been tracking this information already. It's a matter of how you've been tracking it. And since it's got to be electronic in just a little over a year, the question is, what's the best way for you to do that? So we're going to be talking about, as we move on here, not just becoming compliant, because I find that when people implement a solution to just satisfy one particular requirement, what I've seen happen is that they find a specific solution for that requirement, and that sits outside of the other pieces, other solutions that they have in place in their business. And at some point, many of my customers get to a point where they're like, okay, this is too much data. This is too many disconnected systems. I've got something for this, and I've got a bunch of logs for this, and I've got an accounting system, and I've got a system that I'm trying to use for inventory. I've got a whole bunch of spreadsheets going. If that sounds anything like your situation, you're in the right spot today. So we're going to be talking about what kind of software is available, what it can do for you, and more importantly, just the fact that you're tracking this data. If you move that tracking into a system, can there actually be some tangible business benefits that you get beyond just satisfying the inspectors?
Thank you, Judith. So how can we optimize our supply chain? We do all understand that seafood chain is unique and it's complex. It's going to involve multiple points of communication, multiple chains of command, and optimizing this chain is crucial for ensuring the freshness, minimizing waste, enhancing sustainability, everything under that umbrella. So what are some of the specific areas that might be relevant for you? Well, one is enhancing your transparency. Right from your purchasing stage, you want to be able to trust your numbers. You want to be able to make accurate and informed decisions about what is in your inventory. You also want to take things into account like real world factors. Things like changing seasons can have an effect on your inventory. Having an analysis on these seasonal trends and what to buy at certain times is going to allow you to make these transparent decisions based off of historical data. Once you can forecast, once you have made these decisions for purchasing, this flow will follow all the way through to the invoicing stage. So maybe that means you're selling more improved food safety products because you've made smarter decisions on the purchasing side. And maybe you have a better overview of your inventory. So you get a full wide view of what's actually sitting in there and what's available at all times. You might be able to see inventory that's already allocated to certain customers, whereas we are used to having a lot of people who thought they might have had an item in inventory, but it was actually already allocated to another customer. Things like that, more transparency amongst all the users within a software for a company. Efficiency strategies. So integrating ERP systems can consolidate all of this data from so many various departments. So things like finance, inventory, sales, procurement, all of it can be reduced into one single platform, which is also going to reduce your data silos and improve that access to your information. So for example, a lot of things like a scale integrating with your transaction software. Those can be integrated and selected so that when you go weigh a box, your inventory is automatically updated. These are all things that will increase the efficiency within your strategy, as well as making real-time data available our teams can make informed decisions. So we can enhance our responsiveness to market changes and operational changes, and we can make more informed decisions. When we have a software as well, we can do things, we can have more accountability for our processes. So things like creating claims can be made a lot easier. Processing claims credits, returns, any bad quality products, anything like that will allow you to keep all of these claims in one spot. It can also allow you to get some more information into your processes. So I actually had a customer once who was very, very frustrated with one of their customers in particular. What my customer had done is they had created 3 recurring orders for their own customers, all receiving the same product. However, all of these customers were getting their inventory transported in a different method. After weeks and weeks, he noticed that there was one particular customer within these recurring orders that was continuously making changes, or making claims, sorry. What he noticed is that, one, he was getting very frustrated because he would look at it and he would say, wait, what? How could that be? This inventory is all harvested, it's processed, and it's packaged the same way. Why is one of my customers always creating claims? Well, after a little bit of investigation, he was actually able to pinpoint the problem, it being nothing related to the actual processing line or anything to do with the inventory. What was happening is that on the different transports, something was happening to the inventory on this specific order to this specific customer. It was an easy solution. He corrected the problem in a matter of minutes. And after that, he was able to actually have a conversation with his customer to apologize for the frustrations. He was frustrated thinking that his customer was taking advantage, when in reality, it was actually something on his end that was not going smoothly. So what he was able to do was he was able to minimize those frustrations on both sides of the party. And not only that, he was able to very quickly mend his relationship. He solved the problem, and since that moment, the credits have decreased immensely. Having all this information in a software is going to allow you guys and your organizations to compare and track things like this. Whether it's claims, whether it's credit orders, whatever it might be, you will have more accountability and more insight as to why these are happening. You'll be able to correct these quickly, and in turn, be more prepared for changes and changes for the future. So what are some of these things that we can expect if we do decide to implement softwares to track inventory, create our orders? Well, let's look at some of the facts. Inventory management. Companies that implement inventory management softwares actually report a reduction in their inventory costs by 20 to 30%. This might include improved tracking, which is also going to reduce their waste and their spoilage. Production efficiency. Research has shown that manufacturers using production scheduling softwares actually increase their efficiency for up to 30%. This will help processors optimize their workflows, reduce the downtime, and meet their demands more effectively. Quality control. Implementing quality management systems can lead to a 25% reduction in defects. For seafood processors, this is huge. It means improved product quality and reduced returns on reprocessing costs. Traceability and compliance, so a big topic of conversation, and companies are utilizing this traceability software or utilizing software to enhance their traceability. And they have found that they are actually responding to these recalls that they experience 80% faster. In this industry, that speed is critical. Freshness and safety are paramount, and we need to be on top of this. Data-driven decision-making. Many organizations that have leveraged data analytics reporting has improved their decision-making speeds by 5 to 10 times. Again, for people like you, seafood processors, this means quicker adjustments to production schedules, and it will be based on market demand or supply chain disruptions. Companies that have implemented ERP systems or enterprise resource planning systems can see a return on their investment of up to 300% within 3 years. Now, of course, this can always depend on projects and size and scale, but as these processes get streamlined, things like administrative costs get reduced, right? More and more knowledge in the system, easier for training. But don't take my word for it. Matorka is a customer of ours. They are a sustainable land-based fish farm that emphasizes working in harmony with the natural ecosystem that surrounds them. They are located in Grindavik, Iceland, and they actually use 100% green geothermal electricity in pristine lava-filtered waters in order to harvest their Arctic char. They raise their fish from eggs in their hatchery. They process pinbone out fillets for the US and European markets. And they have found tremendous advantage in adapting a cloud-based ERP solution. They were initially looking for a solution that integrated both of their hardwares and softwares together, which in turn was going to increase their efficiency on the processing line as well as their invoicing process. However, in the process of solving these issues, they actually ended up combating the upcoming traceability requirements well before they became mandated. So as Judith mentioned earlier, if we were trying to combat the new regulations and all the other benefits we might see along with that, this was a little bit of a flip. This happened a few years ago, and when they made the change, they were already ready for these upcoming regulations that we'll see in January 2026. Another huge impact from software-specific data is Lens Fishery. They are a New Jersey-based seafood company, and they're renowned for high-quality products and its position in the US market as being the only harvester of the 3 domestic squid species. What they were looking for was a solution to overcome challenges of efficiently managing the vast amounts of data that are inherent in their operations. Since the transition, Lens has been able to have their information readily available whenever and wherever they are. And because of this, they have been able to get the quick insight into both their historical and real-time data. Streamlining data viewing and analysis does become more and more critical as data volume grows. Once the groundwork is laid, the reporting can become a perpetual asset for you. And this approach can ensure that analytics efforts are not just a one-time investment, but an ongoing source of valuable insight for companies to increase their revenue.
This we hear all the time. Why can't we just use Excel? And in fact, the FDA has even put out some Excel spreadsheets for use to help you with FSMA. But once you take a look at those spreadsheets and you see all the different information that they want you to input into these spreadsheets, you're likely going to say there has to be a better way. And the good news is that there is. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Excel. I am a pivot table fan. I work with them daily. But I was quite surprised when I was doing some research on Excel to find this recent study where they examined, spreadsheets that businesses were using to make decisions, and found that despite all our best efforts of, making our fancy formulas and such, a very high majority had critical errors that were giving you information that you would not want to act on. And usually we only discover these errors when a particular number looks so wonky that we think, okay, what's going on? And we start to follow our path of, well, this is summing up these, and this is multiplying by this. And then we realize, oops, we made a mistake. So one of the things when you look at, say, even the FDA spreadsheets, is that because lot numbers, lot codes can have both letters and numbers, generally you need to format your column in Excel to be basically text. You can't say it has to be a number because you will find some lot numbers that have some letters in them. And what happens in a spreadsheet is that there's really no verification that takes place. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a spreadsheet and on one tab you're doing all of your receivings, and maybe you're receiving some products that are spices, for example, coming in with lot numbers. You're not scanning them. Someone is recording this information. So the first person at receiving says, okay, I received 100 units of lot L001. And that's written on the cases that are there. And a week from now, someone goes to make a recipe and they say they've got some paperwork. They go out and they say, okay, I'm using lot L001. That can be a very easy mistake to make. The O's and the zeros look incredibly the same depending on the font. And so now you've got one person saying they used lot L001, whereas you actually received lot L001. And there's no verification to say, whoa, wait a minute, stop for a second. You don't have any 001, so you couldn't possibly have used that. So you can see that if it's an open field that is not actually looking at the transactions that took place to get you to this point, it's not going to catch that error. So when people are keying that kind of information, you can see we're more prone to errors. If we're using spreadsheets that are not able to do that verification piece, we're especially prone to errors. Scanning is, of course, a way that helps you to make less of those errors, because if you're all scanning the same barcodes, then if you have it in front of you, you received it. So it's just something to keep in mind where, of course, when you're really small, you might be able to get away with Excel. It's certainly allowable if you use a properly formatted Excel spreadsheet. But very quickly, as your business grows, it can get both out of hand and unruly. And also, if the information is being input into this spreadsheet, is it actually working for you in any other way? So that's my thought on Excel, is that Excel is a wonderful tool, but it's not the right tool for tracking traceability information.
And as we've established at the very beginning of our time together today, that embracing this change is no longer just going to be the strategy, but the necessity. We know that these changes can be daunting. So if we alter our perspective and mind frame a little bit to think of all of these different opportunities that we can actually gain from this change, it might become slightly less terrifying for us. So for example, opportunity. What opportunities can we gain from having to comply to government regulations? Well, we could enhance our trust and our credibility surrounding the brand. We could streamline our operations, gain access to new markets, confident risk management tools, and sustainability leadership. No matter what it is that you are trying to achieve within your business, by complying with these regulations, chances are you are also going to combat these problems. The benefits you see will exceed far beyond what you initially expected. You're going to gain these relationships with trusted partners, and as well, you yourselves might even become advisors to some of your customers. Service expansion. Investing in a scalable and adaptable system before it's too late can also help long-term with your service expansion. In a software that automates compliance, tracking, reporting, it makes it easier for you to manage your obligations. So why not leverage your technology even further? The possibilities are going to continue to expand, and having a great foundation to start is the right course of action to start with. It'll make improvements quicker and easier in the future, and it will also make adaptability much smoother. Not just for you, but also the users within your system. Promotional strategies. So by highlighting your commitment to compliance, you're actually starting to showcase yourself as a key differentiator. The compliance regulations will put you ahead of your competitors, which will result in a market advantage. And while you're doing that, why not gain more margin improvement? Maybe your interests lay within the company margins. Maybe you have an employee today who's responsible for calculating yields, margins, cost of goods sold, all of this. But imagine now if the system that was calculating this did it automatically. What would that mean for you? Will it reduce your labor costs? Will it increase your efficiency? Will it allow you to make more informed decisions? How will you benefit from this? It's all tailored to you and the information that you wish to gain. By using automated softwares, the value that you add to your business is incomparable. And it's all because you as a seafood processor just needed to comply with the new upcoming regulations that are inevitable. I'm going to hand it back over to Judith because she has a really great real world example for you on this.
And just to add to what Cyra was saying, I think another reason that I see people implementing technology is to attract and retain great employees. The reality is that our younger generation wants to use technology. They expect to use technology. And I think if they show up and you hand them a clipboard and a pen, you're going to get some rebellion on some of these people. So I think that it's inevitable that we're moving towards automation. And so one question is are you ready? And what do you need to understand to make an informed decision about what the right technology is for you and your growing business? So we talk a lot in our company about having purpose-built solutions. And what we mean by that is that we're not just one piece of software at CAI. We are a company that has a variety of different programs within the same vertical food manufacturing market to offer, depending on your size, what your focus is, what your needs are. So we don't have a one-size-fits-all solution. We have a number of solutions to fit all sizes. Now, when it comes to scanning, for example, I like to use this as a great example for why having a purpose-built solution makes sense. And that's I go to a lot of companies who are looking to buy software, and they say to me, you know what, I'm all ready for scanning. Just come and see in my warehouse. Everything has a barcode on it. I'm good to go. And so we'll go out and we'll look in their warehouse, and often enough, I will see barcodes that don't have any information besides the product code in it. And I'll say to them, now you said that traceability was an important feature for you. And they said, yeah, absolutely. And I said, well, this particular barcode that I see here is actually not going to cut it because it doesn't tell us when the product was made, when it expires. It doesn't tell us a lot number or a serial number. It doesn't give us enough information encoded into the barcode to work with. And that's when you have to start saying, okay, what can we do? Can we relabel? What are the opportunities? But here's an example. GS1 is the global standard around the globe, creator of barcodes so there are no duplicates around the world. It's a nonprofit organization. Many of you may be asked to dole out money in your particular country in order to get a supplier prefix, which forms part of your barcodes in order to make them unique. Now, the barcodes you put on your finished goods are used both for you internally to scan, to ship product to your customers, but also for your customers to scan as the next level down in the supply chain. In this particular barcode, which is known as a GS1 128 or a code 128 or formerly called an EAN 128, depending on where you are in the world, it's actually a barcode that allows you to pick up multiple pieces of information in a single scan. In this case, there are 4 pieces of information encoded into this particular barcode. And those 4 pieces are highlighted by the yellow highlighted sections or segments of the barcode. It includes, in this case, a GTIN, so basically an identification number for the product itself. It includes, in this case, a couple of different dates, and finally a serial number. In the seafood industry, there's often also a weight that would be included, either in kilos or in pounds, and that would correspond to that given serial number. Or if it's a standard weight product, it might include a number 10, which is a lot number. Now, there's over 99 possible segments. And if you're in the automotive or widget industry, there are different segments being used in the barcodes. So it's important to ensure that whatever software you go with both understands the barcodes that are in use in the seafood industry, and can produce the barcodes, print the barcodes from their system that are going to help both you and your customers and the next people down the supply chain carry forward this traceability with our overall goal to have a complete supply chain traceability possible one day. So this is just a small example of how our experience in the particular industry feeds into how the software works. And the software needs to understand the particular pieces that we're going to see as part of being part of that industry. So
All right.
you're going to take this one, Cyra, or shall I? Whichever.
You go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, solutions that unify. I know that Cyra mentioned about ERP solutions. So that's just a fancy word that stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. And what that simply means is when you think of all your different programs that you might have in use today, and I was talking to a group of CEOs recently, and they said, one of them said, I actually totaled it up and I have 14 systems in use in my company today. What he had done is, as he was growing, if he needed software to manage a particular thing, he would go out and find a program that could manage that one thing. So what he found himself was growing rapidly with a bunch of disconnected silos of information, where maybe a few pieces would talk back and forth in some of these programs, but they were doing duplicate entry. They were using Excel to try and pull together data to make management decisions. He got to a point where this is not working and there's got to be a better way. And so that's where these ERP systems that combine at minimum the traceability pieces, so that would be things like purchasing and receiving, the manufacturing piece if you manufacture or transform the product in some way, and then finally the shipping, warehouse, inventory control piece, so we know what you sent to each and every of your customers. In order to know the customers, we typically need to know all of the orders, and therefore we do the invoicing piece. So that's usually the minimum that an ERP system includes. Some ERP systems will also have their own accounting, others will integrate to accounting. So you want the operational side of your business at minimum in the same system. And that's so that you've got the ability to see reporting, dashboards, things that can help you with what to buy when, how much to buy, based on your planned usage, based on your planned manufacturing, and even the ability to go right down to the plant floor and often produce orders, weigh and label to specific orders, which again saves time, because if you weigh and label to an order, you don't typically have to scan that order every case out the door. So you're saving time by having the operational all linked to that order piece. So when we talk about systems that can unify information, we're not saying that you can get rid of 14 systems necessarily, but you could probably get rid of 7 or 8 and combine that information in a way that gives you incredible visibility to the things you need to make those decisions. So our goal with all of this is, moving well beyond just compliance and getting those inspectors in and out the door quickly, which I completely understand is a very valuable goal. But when you can move beyond that, you start to achieve the ROI on the investment that you've made in buying these systems. Oh, and let me, okay, costing is one of my favorite things to talk about. I know that's what makes me a nerd, but costs are something computers do really well. So picture if we know what you've paid your supplier, whether you received by weight or you received by unit, you've at some point got to pay your suppliers. If that piece is in a system, and then you have recipes and you say, okay, I'm going to make crab cakes today. So I'm going to combine my crab meat with my packaging, with my peppers, with my breadcrumbs, all of these things. And the total cost of all the items you said you're putting into that batch, and then the total number that you get out from that batch are combined for traceability, which they need to be. Isn't it super easy for a software program to calculate a cost on that? You had an input cost of $1,000. You made, 100 units, so it's $10 a unit. So now we've got costs. If the same system has invoicing, it's got orders, and each one of your customers, whether you sell it for the same price or a different price, the system knows what you sold it to them for. We now know what you made it for. We know what you sold it for. So now here's your margin. And on the actual $1,000 input cost to 100 finished goods, there's your yield. And tomorrow, if you don't do as well and you get 99 finished goods, well, you did worse and your yield's gone down. Or if you do better, now you've got a lower cost on those finished goods. So the fact that you're doing the pieces you need for traceability can mean incredible things if the software that you choose is able to do this kind of thing, which is costing, profitability tracking, dashboards, all of that kind of thing for you at the same time.
Alrighty. So now that you've spent the last 45 minutes listening to us, we thought it might be nice to give you guys a little bit more information about who we are. So to put it plain and simple, we are a group of tech nerds. We love to geek out. We love to try new things. Within that, we do have a passion for seafood and collaboration. Being globally located has put us at a very unique advantage for understanding and expanding our knowledge and resources, which has in turn helped us create a tailored solution for the seafood industry. We truly respect the idea that the knowledge today is not just on the screen of the seminar with Judith and I, but it actually lays within the everyday trials and tribulations that we hear from the people like you. We truly like to focus our efforts on understanding and learning from them, the needs and changes from you, potential users, and the perspectives that you hold give us more valuable insight about how we can better accommodate all the members in the seafood industry. No matter what your goal is for increasing your operational efficiencies, maybe it's to comply with regulations, maybe you want to get better at what you do, maybe you have ambitions of growing, maybe you want reduced costs, or maybe it's just as plain as simple, you want to spend more time with the family that you love at the end of the day. Whatever that reason might be, the goal remains. It's time to start future-proofing your seafood processes. It's time to start navigating your future growth. It's time to revolutionize your seafood processes and minimize the pain points that you experience today. Because remember, that change is inevitable. We know that it's going to be scary, but that's where we come in. As trusted advisors to the seafood industry, our mission is to help prepare help prepare users like you survive these changes and then grow within them as well. So now, before we do open the floor to questions, we really would like to thank you for your time and participation today. You truly make us more knowledgeable, and we do hope that we have done and will continue to do the same for you in the future. So with that, I would like to open up the floor for questions.
Excellent. Thank you. And we have saved time for Q&A today. As a reminder, if you have not asked your questions yet, or if you've thought of any more, please type them into the Q&A box and hit send to submit them. And our first question here, someone's wondering, how big does a company need to be before they need a system?
Well, you know, fortunately for CAI is that we're actually a collection of systems. We're not one system. And so I feel like there are different needs for companies that are 3 people, obviously, than companies that are hundreds of people. And so while the same solution is not right for every size of a company, certainly every size of a company, if they are selling into the US market or in the US, needs some type of system for even satisfying these requirements and existing as a business. But hopefully we've made the case today that you get far more by using a system. So whether you're 3 people or 3,000 people, I think it doesn't matter. You're going to need some kind of a system. So why not choose something that's right for your size of company and start to get those benefits, no matter how big or small that you are.
Thank you. And what are other risks of not implementing a software?
Want me to take this one, Cyra?
Sure, you start and I'll jump in.
Okay, sure. I mean, I think the big risk is almost like fear of missing out. It's if you've got all of your competitors jumping on the technology bandwagon and able to do things faster, be more nimble, have information quicker, it makes it easier for them to grow, and you could get left behind. And so I think that's really the one of the key things, especially when it comes to talent. As we've talked about, younger people have an expectation of technology and don't want to go into a place looking for a career and wanting to grow their career and start with someone with a clipboard and a notepad. They want to delve in, and they're not afraid to as well. I think that's one of the things when I'm helping customers implement scanners. I often say, hand the scanner to the youngest person you've got, because they will just start pressing buttons. They'll figure it out on their own. Whereas you've got different people of different stages of life, they might be like, okay, I'm only going to use this in the way you tell me to use this. So I usually say, hand it to the youngest person, they'll figure it out, and go from there. So yeah. Have you got anything to add on risks, Cyra, that of not implementing?
I mean, on the one hand, a big risk is less insight into your operations, right? Like that is also a huge key piece that really, from my perspective, when I'm dealing with potential customers or signed customers, the amount of information that they are starting to see that they didn't even know they had access to, because in a previous system, or maybe it was their Google Sheets, whatever it was that they're using, none of that was even available. It wasn't even a thought yet. So that would be something that I would say could be a huge risk for potential customers if they choose to stay on things like Google Sheets or anything like that, is that you're not really getting your full potential. Chances are you have...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, or even just widening the scope of a recall. I mean, I know if you're a really small company, if there's a recall, I mean, it could put you out of business. But as you get bigger, of course, if there's a recall, you want to narrow that recall as narrow as you possibly can to solve the problem, but not lose customers, go to the expense of the recall. And if you can't provide that information quickly enough or in detail enough to narrow it down and say, I know exactly who I sent this product to on that day, then the compliance folks of the government, they have no problem. It's not their money. They'll open the recall up and say, well, pull the day before the day after, or even widen further if you can't get them the right information quickly enough. So I think that's a real risk, that the wider your recall, the more damage to your brand. And so having, information helps you to react quickly. And I mean, even on social media, I've seen people where if they can't react quickly enough and provide the information quickly enough, they might be providing it within 24 hours quickly enough for the government, but it might not be quick enough for a consumer. Oh, here we've got another one.
Excellent. Let's see. There is another question here. Someone's wondering, what does your implementation process look like?
Oh, I'll let you take that one because I'm more in sales.
So the implementation process, there's quite a few methodologies out there which we follow, and essentially we choose the one that is correct for the platform that you would need. So since CAI is a organization of quite a few different softwares, first and foremost, we find the right solution that will better suit your company. From there, the implementation process could vary depending on how many users you might have, how many different modules you might need. Sometimes you can pick and choose. It all is dependent on what exactly you guys as the users need to see in that information. So typically speaking, we'll spend quite a long time going through a discovery phase. We really need to understand how you operate as your business, and that's how we can create the solution that's best for you. We go through, typically, we do months of setup and testing and training, and nothing moves forward without the approval of the users themselves. So it's a very collaborative process, and it's also very, very safe. We don't move forward from one stage to a next until you guys as the users are comfortable and have approved it in writing. So not only do we help to try increase your efficiency, increase your processes, but a huge part of it is also making sure that you feel comfortable in the system, making sure you understand where you can find your information, where you can create new information, so that you can become a self-sustained online or on a software organization. And then, of course, we are always here to support. We have a great support team, and we just love working with customers. We do.
Now, I see another question here, which I can at least answer part of, which is typically the ERP programs we're working with are mostly designed for wholesalers, manufacturers, harvesters, distributors. Less of them have, a few of them have components which allow for small retail businesses, but are not necessarily designed to operate things like grocery stores, for example. We're mostly in the behind the scenes retail supply chain. And then our markets include Europe and certainly North America, Canada, the US. I'm not quite sure about, I see one in Singapore asking a question in Singapore. I'm not entirely sure on that, but certainly if you email info@caisoft.com, we can get that question answered for you. I think part of the differences across the world would be things like taxation. Those are part of the, but a lot of the labeling and things like that are actually kind of universal and go across the supply chain all over the world.
And just to add to your point there, Judith, we very recently have a customer in Asia. So if you do, Jake, if you would like some more information, please feel free to reach out to the email on the screen there. And then I can take you through a case study or anything like that if you would like as well, to help answer that question more specifically.
Thank you. And I think we have time for at least one more question here. Someone else was wondering, how long does it take to implement a system?
So I think similarly, it's very dependent, depending how complex too certain customers like to go. There's lots of very cool things in the systems to help you be more efficient, right? Like it could be something as simple as creating a sales order template, but that reduces your time when entering your sales order. If you need things like that, we'll usually tag on some time for that. But we won't know how long the implementation takes until we typically go through the discovery phase, which gives both CAI and the consultants working just a better insight into how you guys operate your business so that we can give you the adequate number of hours or times or months that the project might be. So we don't like to pinpoint it too much, but we do always get you an answer for that project depending on the needs from you.
And it kind of depends on the number of users and how many people you have to train, because some companies go with the approach of train the trainer and they'll train some people. Others say, no, you're going to train every single one of my people. So I think, we tailor the implementation to each individual customer to make sure that whatever approach works best for them. I think sometimes the customers decide to slow down a bit on an implementation to sort of take advantage and say, you know what, this is my opportunity to recode all of my parts or something. So even if we're ready to go and keep going, they might say, no, you know what, I'm going to take a week and we're going to recode these things to put into the new system. So there is a lot of interaction in the implementation phase where people might take a step back and say, you know what, this is my opportunity to clean up data. It's my opportunity to get things right that I may have done haphazardly or just done, as a business was growing. So it's a very interactive process, and the timeline can't always be, pinpointed.
Excellent. Thank you. And it does look like we are just about out of time today. But before we officially close out, I just have a few final housekeeping notes to cover. If you could please fill out the short evaluation form that will appear on the webinar console. This will help us better serve your needs in future webinars. And as a reminder, the on-demand materials will be emailed to everyone within 2 business days, and that will include the recording of today's webinar. So you can rewatch that as you would like. So again, that'll be in your inbox within 2 business days. And thank you again, Cyra and Judith, for a great presentation today. And thank you to all of our attendees for taking the time out of your busy days to join us. This webinar was brought to you by Seafood Source and sponsored by CAI Software. Thank you all and have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.